Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the show. This is episode number 318 of the Beyond the Ring with Big T Wrestling podcast here for Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. I'm your host, Big T, right here with all of you today. And as I said, we were going to have a really special episode this week again. For the third week in a row, joining me, we have Mr. Erik Watts along with us today. How you doing, Erik?
I'm doing fantastic, man. Doing fantastic.
It's great to have you back.
It's great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too, man. The part one we talked about the beginning of everything, with your career and whatnot, and just your growing up years. And last time we were here, we talked about WCW, WWF days. Now, of course, I am well aware that you had stints, all around the world, all Japan Pro Wrestling, ECW, stuff in Germany, all you did so many things, but we could revisit that at another time because today for part three, we're here for the TNA years, and I would like to dedicate this episode solely to TNA. This was in my opinion, the prime of your career, where just so many things went down and so many great moments. And I'm really excited to get into this with you here today. So thank you for taking the time with me and being willing to tell your story on TNA. And where I would like to start this off, Erik, is, we talked about the time when you departed WCW, WWF, WWF actually, that was the last place you were. We talked about that. And then you talked about everything that you were going through medically and thinking about, retirement. And next thing you know, you got a call. And that's how talk started for TNA Wrestling. So, can you take us through the whole process of where your mindset was and then getting the call and then what made you decide you want to go and try this out?
Right. So my internal bleeding had gotten pretty bad. Doctors couldn't figure it out. They basically said I had to like 35 to live. More than likely that I'd die of cancer because of the internal bleeding. If the area doesn't get healed, then a lot of times cancer and other problems come out of it. So I'm sitting back. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a what they call a turnkey company, which is it's a service for apartments or home rentals or anything like that. Anytime you go in and fix anything wrong with an apartment or a home so that the owner can turn the keys over to a new tenant. It's kind of turnkey from paint to cleaning to sheetrock damage to plumbing, electrical. It could be anything. I had a huge, like $5 million contract. We just went in and did all new cabinets, countertops, light fixtures, fans, painted, this one property. So anything to turn the key back over. So that's rock and rolling. My motivational speaking is taking off, and yet my love is pro wrestling, and I really want to give it a shot. But now I'm saying, okay, maybe my health is telling me maybe it's time to to figure things out. Until they can get, because the problem is where my bleeding was. It wasn't making me bleed, but the bleeding would come and it would fade really fast. And now I haven't had any procedures in, oh God, probably 20 years, 18 years.
Okay.
But a lot of people would think even 18 years ago that they could find anything at any time. Well, believe it or not, even the light systems weren't the best. So when they start scoping into your lungs and into your stomach area, a lot of those areas become very tough to detect things. So they're trying to find the area to take care of the the weakness, whether it's a vein, whether it's a capillary, so they could fuse it or cut it out. They just couldn't find it. The difficulty is it didn't really matter. I didn't know when the blood would happen. I've had someone just slap me on the back and blood come out. I have taken back drops and get power bombed myself and no blood. A hip toss, then blood. And the issue is, you're on you're wrestling and you're moving. Well, if you take a big bump and you're to lay down for a while to sell that bump, but you've got blood caught in your esophagus and you can't breathe, it makes it, you have even more to manage, if you can imagine, not just the match and where you're at and what's the story and what are the people saying and doing. I mean, there was times literally I'd have to have my opponent, throw me out just so I could hit the mat, hit the concrete, try to spit it out. I've even grabbed drinks off someone off the first row just to get a drink to see if it could stop the bleeding. So about that time, I know that it's going to be difficult for me to stop wrestling. So I got with my wife and I said, we got to figure this out. I think that I think I'm done. Until there's another advancement in medical, we got to make changes. And she was all for it, and it was a big decision, and it was like all of a sudden I just had this breath of fresh air, and because I didn't want to quit, and I just said, but this is what I'm gonna do. This is what's best for me and my family right now, and so this is what I'm gonna do. And it seemed like, I believe it was the next day, my phone rings from a number that I didn't recognize, but I always answer my phone, and I get a call, and there's a guy named Vince Russo on the line. Now, of course, I knew who Vince Russo was, being a booker type person, a story writer. I had met Vince on one of my first trips up to WWE because he was the WWE magazine, one of the publicists in the magazine, and so
Okay.
he would come do so he'd come do stories about new talent. So when Techno Team 2000 was there, he interviewed Chad and I. So, but a great story came out of that because he told me that basically my father was the reason he got a chance at writing. And he told me, he goes, Eric, I believe things happen for a reason. I'm calling you. Jeff is looking for someone that can come into TNA, that isn't on the radar immediately, because they were trying to get Hulk Hogan. They were trying to get a few people to come in there at the time. And they did get a few, Sting came through and Dallas Page came through and all this other stuff came through. But he was like, I need an opponent that I can do a huge program with. And I want someone big, and I want someone that people know but wouldn't be ready for if they show up on set. And so I told Vince, I said, Vince, as much as I appreciate you talking to me about it first, I've never seen the TNA product. I've never watched it. For the people that don't know this, TNA, when it started, it was a niche market, right? So they had a pay-per-view every Wednesday. So if
Yep.
you weren't buying that pay-per-view every Wednesday, you weren't seeing their show. And then later on, they started a free show that was in like 5 markets. I can't even remember. It was a Saturday something. I can't remember the name of it. But so I was like, Vince, I really appreciate it, but I just dedicated myself not to wrestle anymore. I want to take some time off. I don't need to be on the road so much now. I'm not telling him why. I'm just saying I don't. He goes, Eric, if you're interested, it's only 52 matches a year. So the first thing I'm thinking is like, well, shoot, that isn't much. But I'm talking to him. He goes, Eric, let me tell you how my life changed. I was outside of a booking meeting, the booking at WWE. The booking meeting was running long. So, but I was standing out there because I was supposed to have a meeting with Vince or whomever right after the meeting. So he said, out comes your father. He took a break from the meeting to go back in because he was the head guy in charge there. And he said, who are you? He goes, I'm Vince Russo. I'm an editor for the magazine. He goes, well, what do you think about the product right now? My dad had just basically got up there. He was asked to come and do to revitalize WWE's product. Okay. And Vince started telling him. He goes, well, what do you think's right? What do you think's wrong? So Vince just opens up, starts telling my dad. And this is Vince telling me the story, not my dad telling me the story. My dad's never told me the story. And he goes, I think you're exactly right, kid. Let me go use the restroom. I'll be right back. And he goes, okay. Well, my dad came out and goes, come on, you're going to the meeting. He goes, oh, sir, no, I'm not allowed in the meetings. I'm just a writer for the magazine, and that's not that's not my that's not what I'm supposed to be doing. And there's people that would probably be pissed if I went in there, and I don't want to have to deal with the hatred and things that happen just from me going in there. I like my job. I don't want to lose my job. And my dad goes, I can guarantee you there's not 10 people in that room that you would fear as a group over me. So if you're really worried about your job, get your scrawny ass in here. So he went in, and basically my dad said, well, let me tell you, you're all your ideas are the shits. They're all replayed. You guys have done this forever and ever, but I was just talking to this kid. He's got some pretty good ideas. Of course, exactly what Vince was saying. All these eyes are looking at him, mad as hell. Who's this guy? He's just a writer for the magazine. How did he even get this meeting? But my dad didn't care. And so that was the birth of Vince Russo up at WWE. Now, the reason I tell you that is he told me a story, which I thought was really cool. He goes, Eric, it's a right place at the right time. That's how life has it. I never thought that I'd have an opportunity to write for WWE. He goes, I believe in TNA, and I believe there's the right place and the right time. And he goes, and I believe you're the right opponent to come in versus Jeff to take this place somewhere. And I said, man, that's a great honor. But I listened to the story. It was really cool. I said, listen, if you're asking me to come look at the product, I'll come look at the product. But I want to be left alone. I'll ride up with you and whoever comes up from Atlanta. But other than that, I just want to be there to check out the product. And so I rode up there. I think it was maybe like Raven, maybe Disco Inferno, maybe Sonny Siaki, someone like that. A small group of guys from Atlanta riding up together. A lot of people coming from Atlanta, but that group kind of hung out some. And so I'm riding up there. I'm not saying anything. I get there and I said, hey, is there a place where I can watch this where the fans can't see me and I'm not messed with? I just want to watch it. They go, actually, if you go behind these bleachers up to the far left, there's a little nest area that you can see through the curtains. They can't see you, and it'll be perfect. And I said, beautiful. And so I went ahead and sat up there. I didn't go hang around the back to meet people, not meet people, whatever. And I got to be honest with you, that show started, and from the time it started till the time it was over, I don't even think I swallowed one time. I think my mouth was open and I was blown away because it reminded me of kind of that ECW time, but I didn't know any of these athletes. I mean, 90% of the guys I didn't know. Who AJ Styles from Gainesville? Who is that? I mean, I could name 1,000 guys, not 1,000. I could name 15 guys that were on that card. I had no idea who they were at all. And I don't mean that wrong. I mean, these guys were independent wrestlers that had made it to WCW, had not made it to WWE, were not at ECW, and therefore I wouldn't have an opportunity to see these guys. Homegrown local guys that were willing to give it all up for the sport. And I absolutely loved it. I saw some of the most incredible matches I've ever seen in my life. Yeah, there was guys there that could rock it. Jerry Lynn is one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. You got Kid Cash there. You Ravens, Sandman. So there was some talent there. But I have never seen so many people at one event that had so much talent that had never been discovered yet or given a chance, and mainly because of their size. Okay,
Yep.
WCW and WWE, they just, I was 6'6", 290. I fit in, right?
That's
Everyone was like 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and that was the athletes. So I watched it. I couldn't tell you what all was going through my mind because everything was going in my mind. I was kind of emotional about it. I'm like, I got to be a part of this. And I knew I was going just to say, hey, I did it. Thank you. I appreciate the story about my dad, you, Vince, tell Jeff thanks, but no thanks. So I can't, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to tell my wife that I just told her that she cannot let me go back into wrestling, that we've just made this? It was crazy. So I drive back to tell her, basically, I got a calling. I got to do this, man. I got to go back and wrestle. But it's only 52 times. And so we got together. Contracts were formed. Money was decided about. And I'm at the next show. And they brought me in just as hot as anyone could do. I mean, just for the first few weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, all I did was lay Jeff out, beat him to death. I mean, anything you could do to him. I mean, I beat him up outside and tied a chain around his throat and drug him in a car down the street. I mean, so there was pretty much anything and everything that you could do to Jeff Jarrett to build up this to build up this this federation and an angle with Jeff. And then it was mind-boggling. I get a call from Vince, and he goes, "Erik, I got to talk to you." I said, "What?" He goes, "You're not gonna believe this." I go, "What?" He goes, "Jeff doesn't want to do the angle." I'm
Oh,
like, hold on. He has spent how much time and how much money me just coming and beating him up. Please tell me what the reason is, because I didn't go back to my wife and talk to her about not wanting to get a part of anything. I shouldn't do this for my health. I need to go a different direction to sign a 2-year agreement just to sit here and play games. I mean, I was mind boggled. I said, Vince, please tell me the reason Jeff doesn't want to do this. Tell me Hogan's finally going to come in. Tell me something else has happened. He goes, no. What he said is he didn't know you're that big. And I just started laughing. I go, here we go again, man. The politics of pro wrestling. This is
yeah,
unbelievable. I said, well, let me ask you. Since I've been 6'6", since I've been about 13 years old, everyone that I went to junior high with knew me 6'6". Everyone in high school knew I was 6'6". That's kind of weird. I haven't shrunk that way. I've just gotten bigger. And let's see, Jeff knew I was 6'6" when it was me, Jeff, Road Dogg at Bret Hart's house that you and me talked about the WWE days, right? So he knew
that's
how
right.
big I was. He's been on the road with me. What a just ultimate office dog crap excuse. It was so pathetic that I had to contemplate, do I show up and just stomp this guy's brains out? Because what just a douche move, right? And
Yeah,
and it was and I was like, Vince, and he's like, Vince is like, Erik, listen to me. I called you. I brought you in. I know TNA needs you, and you are going to put TNA on the map. So just breathe with me. I go, well, so who am I going to do an angle with? He goes, well, one worse. We got this free Saturday show. I can't remember the name of it. And I said,
was it
the one
Explosion
that's in
by
like
any
5-6
chance?
mark. Yeah, explosion, right? It was explosion, which it needed to explode because I think it was in like 3 markets, and I think only like 2 people a week watched it. And so I was like, he wants me to do what? He goes, yeah, he wants to demote you because he believes that you'll just quit. I go, hold on a second. So I said, let me get this straight. So this is what this idiot thinks. That's awesome. So he goes, Erik, you can't do it. He goes, I got too much planned and we got too many things to do. He said, you can't. I said, I don't need this. I don't need the money. I don't have to be here. I definitely don't need. That is the last thing I would expect out of a Jeff Jarrett, a second generation wrestler, blah, 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 blah. Road Dogg. I mean, they're finally putting their foot down. They have ownership. They can write the TVs the way they need to. They can treat the athletes the way they've always wanted to. His dad's been in the business forever. I would sit there with Jerry Jarrett before the shows, and Jerry Jarrett would say, I'm going to tell you right now, the greatest booker of all time of any territory ever. And he goes, and I was one, was Cowboy Bill Watts. So there was that respect and this understanding, and these guys were going to do something. Dusty Rhodes, was there. I mean, the whole thing. So I just sat there and looked at Vince. I said, I'm so blown away. I'm going to take this and I'm going to stick it in Jeff's ear. I said, yeah, you're right. Put me on. Put me on the first match, second match of the day, because that's when they did Explosion. They would do 3 or 4 matches. And then the thing was, I said, just do it. I'll get dressed. I'll hang out. We'll go home. I said, and he'll figure out what a mistake it was. So I then, and he goes, Erik, what's one thing you've always wanted to do in the business that you haven't got to do? I said, well, have to deal with politics, but I can see this is just in all pro wrestling. I said, the one thing is I've never been able to get on the mic my way and say what I want to say. And he
Yeah,
goes, well, how good are you on the mic? And I go, well, there's one dude that I can tell you is in second place to me, but he's way down the line from me, and his name's The Rock. And Vince just laughed. He goes, you know what? I wrote a lot of stuff for The Rock. He goes, if he's second place to you, we got to do it. I said, so I just want mic time, and I don't want to be censored. I want to be able to say whatever I want, and no one is writing one line for me. And I got to be honest with you, I had no idea what I was going to say. I just had to let it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's when they start putting me on. Vince starts putting me on, and everything just turned upside down. I said, "This isn't the asylum. This is Watt's world. What's up? What's you doing? What's wrong with you? What's going on?" All the people would start chanting on that. I came up with so many names. I started introducing myself as like, I'm 6'6" and I'm sexy. I'm 6'6", I'm a good kisser. All this other stuff. To this day, Vince will call me or text me, "What's up, 6'6" and sexy? What's up, 6'6" and and because some of the things I said stuck with him, which is a huge compliment to me because he was around the best in interviews, the Stone Colds and the Rocks and all these people, machos and stuff like that. And if I'm leaving in his mind memories of interview skills, makes me very, very happy. And so to bring you kind of up to date to TNA, so you can ask whatever questions you want. Basically, what happened is, if I had to guess, and I'm not the best guesser, but I bet you I'm not too far off. I bet you I only did that for about 2 or 3 weeks, maybe 4. Now you might go check the records and it was 6. I don't think so because I'm just sitting there and I'm having a blast. I mean, when I'm saying a blast, I mean I am just having so much fun. It's not even funny. And the crowd is going berserk. Now, I didn't say this. I'm going to tell you, Vince Russo said this, and many of the athletes. Within a short period of time, I became such a fan favorite, even though I was wrestling at a heel. I could sometimes barely hear myself talk on the mic. You could
Wow.
not hear yourself in the auditorium. It was that loud. And I even had sometimes when I came back, I go, "Could you hear me on the mic?" Which is stupid because the mic is there. It's easier to hear you on the mic, but it's so the chants and the crazy things were going so crazy. So don't hold me to this, but so one day, Jeff is coming in kind of late, which he normally did, because it's his show, it's his thing, and so normally Jeff he had his own private dressing room, and everyone else dressed in the other room, and I mean everyone, guys, girls, referees, and Jeff had his own. And Jeff would come in and, hey, he wanted his rundown. He wanted to know where he was on the card, who he's wrestling, if he had 1 or 2 interviews, because he's the worst interviewer in the world on the mic. That's why Road Dogg is the one that drug him through WWE, because Road Dogg could talk. But I'll tell you this: Jeff is one of the best wrestlers I've ever been around. So I'm not freestyling ripping Jeff. He is one of the most talented wrestlers I ever watched. And I got to be honest with you, there's a lot of guys that were very talented wrestlers, but because they couldn't do interviews, they weren't going to go up to the top of WCW and WWE. Road Dogg's own brother, Brad Armstrong, is the perfect example of that. Brad Armstrong may
Absolutely.
be the best wrestler I've ever been around in my life, but because he couldn't cut an interview, he wasn't going to transition up tall, right, or high up. So the same stuff was happening with Jeff, and they just put him with Road Dogg, and it took off. But he never became a good guy with interviews. So he comes in, "Hey, what do I do? What are we doing? Where are we going? How's things going?" And again, this is a Vince Russo story. And he goes, "Well, sit down, Jeff. I mean, you got 45 minutes to an hour before you're even on, and blah blah." So he's talking for maybe, he said, 2 or 3 minutes, just giving the basics. You're on this, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what you need to do. And Jeff goes, "Oh my God, I thought you told me I had like 45 minutes." He goes, "The show just started." And he goes, "No, the show didn't start." He goes, what are you talking about?" He goes, "The loudest pop is when because they get the crowd ready and they go, 'Are you ready?' And then they would play that TNA music, and remember the old Olympic wrestling statue that was twirling, and then they
Yeah.
show then they would show the dancers in the cage, Lollipop, and whoever else it was, and the people would be going, and and they're telling them, you got to welcome the nation, the world, and so I mean, it would always be very, very loud, aggressively loud. And he goes, "Bro, that's not for another 30 minutes." And he goes, whatever it is, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. And he goes, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I know that roar." And then he goes, "No, that was Erik Watts entrance reaction. He just went to the ring, goes, Erik Watts just went to the ring. And he just looked, and then this Vince, and he looked like he was pissed because he thought Vince was ribbing him. And he's like, bull, and he stepped out and he put his head through the curtain, and he's seeing me doing my cutting my promo, and the people chant my name and Watts' World and this and that. And he came back to Vince and goes, "Are you kidding me?" And he goes, "Am I kidding you? What?" He goes, "Did you? They've been doing this for weeks." He goes, "Why didn't I know about it?" He goes, "I don't know why you don't know about it, because everyone else, including the boys." He goes, "He is the most over athlete we have, bar none, right now at TNA." Now, listen, I was told this, right? Now, I'm not adding to it. I didn't say I feel I am. I mean, there's a lot of guys I love there. There's a lot of guys like one of my favorite intros is Sandman, Raven, his kooky ass, and all this other stuff. So, I mean, there was a lot of people that I thought were bigger athletes than me as far as draws and things like that. But again, think about it. I'd only been there now for 6-8 weeks. And Jeff goes, "Well, what are we going to do?" He goes, "Well, what do you want?" He goes, "We've got him on the free show that no one watches in Chicago and these places that we're never going to go wrestle to for, because the whole idea was pay-per-view, pay-per-view, pay-per-view." And
Yep.
he goes, "So you're saying our number one draw is on the free show that no one watches?" He goes, "Jeff, you put him there. You were hoping he'd walk off and quit." And so, from what I understand, Jeff said that all changes next week. Rewrite the show. You put him wherever you need to put him. You need to do whatever you do. He goes, but don't put him in a one-on-one situation with him, because I can't take it, because he rips me so hard on the mic. I don't want to have to sit there. He goes, but I'll love watching him rip other people. And so, that's what took off. And from that point until the time in which I had to leave TNA due to a legal situation. I was in a huge divorce battle for 5 years. It was coming down to the end, and I really needed to get out of that contract for many reasons. And Dixie Carter is such a beautiful, wonderful person that she allowed it. And she's like, "Erik, we've got stipulations in your agreement that you've got some pretty big money coming to you." I said, "No, keep it. I need to sever this now." And the thing about it is when that happened, I had just gone into a huge angle where DDP came in, and he ended up reffing, I believe, or was going to ref, and I wrestled Raven, and I had just beat Raven in the middle in Orlando, and it was going to move, and that angle, the Raven angle, was going to move into me and Diamond Dallas Page actually going at it. Yeah,
Wow.
and a lot of people don't know this. The AWA, there was a kid that got the rights to like AWA. I can't remember who it was, and this is funny historical reference. But kid calls me up, and he said, and this was before TNA. This is and he goes, "Hey, would you come do a huge show for me?" And I said, "Sure. Where's it at?" And I think it was in Arizona. He said, "I've got some big names out here," but he goes, I would like for you to come wrestle, and I want you to go main event for the AWA title." I said, "Well, fantastic. I mean, would love to do that. That's fantastic. Sure." He said, "And then because I just bought this AW franchise, we're going to start running Minnesota and all these places, and I'm going to do big shows, like once a month or twice a month or whatever." I'm like, "That sounds fantastic." I said, who am I going to wrestle?" And he goes, "Well, I already called Diamond Dallas Page." And, and at this time, DDP has been 3-time world champion. And I think he was still at WCW at this time. And DDP is like, "Hey, right now I wasn't with WCW, and WWE is in between." And Dallas was like, "Bring Erik Watts in, and let's have a title match, and put the title on Erik." And this guy would go, are you serious?" He goes, "Oh, yeah, that's the guy you want." And so they actually brought me in, and the guest referee they flew in was Mick Foley.
Oh man.
It was awesome. The federation didn't make it because of some legal things happened, and the kid, with money and all this other stuff, so it didn't happen. But it was a huge show. Mick Foley actually took me back because I had to get back to the airport so fast because I had another place to go. and Mick was driving. Erik, man, I haven't seen you, because at that time Mick's at WWE and Dallas at WCW, and I was just doing, I don't know whether I was in Germany, Japan, I don't know where the hell I was at, but that was kind of crazy story. So, needless to say, all that was going on, and so I had to ask for my departure from there. And and it was at the worst time, because if there was anyone that I would want to run a huge angle with back to back, it'd be Raven and Dallas. It'd be phenomenal, because we would have phenomenal matches. We'd known each other for so long, but that's what took me into TNA, and so that's kind of where I was at when you were watching those shows.
Okay. Now, when you first got the contract offer, to go in and do the paperwork, because I know a lot of people, at least, people that I've heard, that talked with me over the years, back when I was in my teenage years, because this was my teenage years. A lot of people thought that Jeff
Right.
Jarrett, owned the thing and everything like that, that Jeff Jarrett was the big head in charge. Now, when you went in to do the contract negotiations, was it overseen by Jeff, or was that a Dixie Carter deal? How did
Dixie
everything go?
Carter.
Okay.
No, no,
Okay.
that was all Dixie Carter. Now I can't remember exactly, right? Because Dixie Carter had a marketing company in Nashville,
Was it
and
Pan?
from
It
what I
wasn't Panda
remember,
Energy, was it?
well, Panda Energy was a $200 or $300 million oil company that her dad owned out of Texas.
Okay.
And her dad's been her dad. They ended up shutting that oil business down. And he, I think, is an executive officer at Federal Express. So I mean, this guy's always been successful, always worth mega money, and basically, and he was a huge pro wrestling fan, being from Texas, the Dusty Rhodes, the Cowboy Bill Watts, the da 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 da. So Dixie and Jeff had met somehow, and she thought that she could help market him to get his name out there. And I think that when they kind of found out that TNA was on a shoestring budget and didn't know how long it was going to be around, I think it sparked her interest. Like, hey, maybe we work something out where I buy a portion of it that will infuse money for you guys, and then we can push this thing big. I think that she had her father's backing, which was Panda Energy, which Panda's the one that put up the money, not Dixie, from what I understand. Now, don't hold me to this, but it was her father. I met him a few times, and so that's how it took off. Now, at the time when I was there, had Dixie taken over the majority yet or not? I don't know, because I know there's a few phases where she had a small majority, and then as they needed more money, she put in more money, or her family put in more money for more ownership of the company, to the point where Jerry was out and Jeff had a small, from what I remember, a small, maybe 10% share of it at the time. Now, those numbers could be way off, but that was a whole kind of theme. So no, I didn't. I never dealt with. I never dealt with Jeff, nor talked to Jeff before my first match. I mean,
Okay.
the first day I went up there, I said, "Hey, how you doing?" But I didn't negotiate with him at all.
Now, as far as your angle with Jeff, because I believe Jeff was the NWA World Champion at the time. I
Mm-hmm.
believe in
Mm-hmm.
those. Was your angle with Jeff, was the payoff going to be a match for the world title, and were you ever
Yeah.
scheduled to get the title put on you?
Well, from the way it was brought to me, is that I came in to irritate the dog shit out of him, and disrupt some matches and leave him laying, and beat him up while he was finishing an angle with someone else, and I can't even remember the time. And then it was either going to be, drop it on me and then drop it back to him, or it was going to be that I just bug him so much that when the match crescendoed, depending on what other talent and what other angles he wanted to do was coming in, and then he would beat me for the match. So it was going to be one or two things. And it had to do with timing there, right? Because again, they were always trying to bring in another big name, ex WWE or WCW person, as well. And I heard so many names coming. Oh, they're going to come, and then they never showed up. Hogan was the biggest one. I mean, they teased that for 4, 5, 6 months that he was coming in, so I think while, and rightfully so. I mean, if you're an up and coming pay-per-view company, what better than have a huge rated star that would come in and do some matches, because the only way people can see that is they buy the pay-per-view, which ups the pay-per-view ratings, right? So out of anywhere, I mean, if Hogan was going to entertain it, they probably just didn't have the guarantee. They probably didn't have the money for the guarantee, because I guarantee they would have given him a huge percentage of buy rates. So maybe Hogan looked at it like, well, there's not enough buy rates. I don't know. That's a much bigger thing than me. But no, it was either going to be I irritate him and then leave him laying in a match and then he gets it back, or I irritate him till it builds up to a match and then he beats me to prove that he's a champ, right? But either way, I was going in for a title shot. Yes.
Oh, I would have loved to see that. I mean, really, the whole feud with you and Jeff was just always remarkable to me. I enjoyed it,
I
and
would I would have loved to have the match based on the fact that all the matches I ever saw with Jeff Jarrett, he was old school in his wrestling. So it didn't matter who he was wrestling, he was going to make them look fantastic. He knew how to make himself look fantastic. Just that old school way of doing things. Raven was the same way. Raven would shine someone because it's the old school. If you just beat someone that's not worth a crap, then what are you? A better piece of crap? The idea
yeah,
is that you build someone, show what talent they have, so that you beat someone with talent, right? So Jeff was always that way, and Jeff was very good with his reading psychology, very good, and he didn't have to set anything up, right? So he went off the people and how he felt, and so he was a great signal caller, that's for sure. So I was more looking at it like, man, how crazy is this? If I walk back into wrestling right now, I end up main event with Jeff Jarrett, and we tear down the house. That would serve all kinds of FUs to some other people. So I was really excited about that. And I think that's probably what hurt more when he changed in the stream of things, which I heard later on. He just was overwhelmed by, now I don't know this to be true, but this is what I heard. He didn't like how I was on the mic, and that I was very quick-witted, and that I would say whatever and anything, but who knows? I never talked to Jeff about it. So
see,
I don't know what all his thought process was.
see, to me, the whole thing is when you're cutting a promo organically. That's what I prefer the most. I mean, when you get that organic reaction and you have realism to it. That's what I miss so much in professional wrestling today, and that's pretty much everything that you brought to the
Yeah.
table, and why I was such a fan of TNA and such a fan of your run. I'm just thinking too. What was it?
Yeah.
I can't remember if it was the 1 year anniversary show or the week after the 1 year anniversary show. It was somewhere around this area when they named you director of authority.
Right,
And
DOA, yeah, yeah. What a great gimmick! That was a Vince Russo, all the way Vince Russo. It was beautiful. He said, Erik, you are the utility guy that I used to dream of when I was when I had WWE, when I had Rock and Austin, and he had a plethora of guys that were incredible on the mic. So that if anything ever happened, someone got injured, something went too short, he could push them right out of the curtain almost and say, go fill 2 minutes or 5 minutes, and it would be awesome. Not that happened all the time, but when you have a lot because a lot of Vince's writing is storylines. And so he didn't want to sit there and have to have every match to set up a new angle. So he would constantly have a lot of talking in his style, right? So he needed talkers. Vince always felt that he was a phenomenal talker. You got Road Dogs and you got Raven. Raven's great. Sandman's great. So you've got these people. Kid Cash was good. Because he was just so mad all the time, so it was believable. and so he had some guys that were good storytellers, but then he had a few that were over the top, me and Raven, like that. So so he didn't have. I don't think he had as many tools. So when he saw that I had that, I think that he was going, hold on to a second. I've got the best of all worlds. He wrestles. He's 6'6". He's 290, and he can talk. Holy crap! And all of a sudden, he came up with this director of authority gimmick. And I remember the only pair of pants I ever wore when he told me about the director of authority. He told me the night before he was going to do it. I had no. He goes, but we got to change your outfit before tomorrow. I go, what? He goes, we got to change your outfit for tomorrow. I said, no. I said, you're going to call me the DOA? I go, yeah. I swear to God, I went and got an old pair of jeans that I didn't give a shit about. This God is my witness. I took a hand towel. I said, I told my wife, I said, hold this down. And I dipped it in bleach, and I started marking out the letters DOA on jeans, and that was my outfit. And I never
Wow.
changed it. It was just the funniest. It was the funniest crap in the world, man. Now, when I was going to go against Raven, when I was going to go against Dallas, and I was leaving the DOA, because the true story is that the DOA got so over that Dusty Rhodes came after it. So that's how over the gimmick was. He's like, I want to be the DOA.
Wow.
And so eventually, yeah. So eventually, when that run was going, Dusty took over as the DOA, and so then I got another look. It was black and long, and Dallas kind of helped design it. It wasn't a favorite of mine, but Dallas said, "Hey, let's get you a different look." So I did that for a short bit, but the DOA was something I loved. It was something that was great, but it allowed Vince to have. I could wrestle matches, not wrestle matches, and there were times. Sometimes it felt like I went out and would cut a promo sometimes 3 times in one show. I mean, literally. I remember one time where he's like, "Oh my God, Raven, he's over in his Raven lair, which is across the area. It's this little office we found so he could put all these candles and stuff. And there's no way for him to know because there's no TV, there's no markers. So he's trying to listen to the crowd. But the only way he knows his interview is going to start is when the cameraman enters the thing and go, so what do you want? He goes, we need to kill 15 seconds, 30 seconds. Please go kill 15, 30. I said, doing what? He goes, just do the 6'6" and dreamy thing. Do something. So now I'm thinking, I go, so I go, where is he? So I run down the hallway, find the cameraman. He goes, what are we going to do? The match just stopped. We got to go live. I go live. And so he goes, what? And so he went live, and then they're on me. And again, here's the craziness. Okay, when you're lucky, maybe you're gifted, maybe I don't know what it is. I can promise you, as good as I know I was going to be on the mic, I can't tell you how many times I was scared to death because I would be going out the curtain and I had no idea what I was going to say. When I say no idea, I had no idea. Nothing. I would have no idea what I'm going to say. Like I would go, okay, well, what's the angle going to go into, or is there a special match? If I got those 2 things, but then I would have to make up everything else in between. And so I remember the cameraman was like, what do you want me to do? I go live. So he goes live, and I was pulling the camera to me because I didn't know what I was going to say. And this went crazy on the internet. I did the old tap tap. I go, testes 1 2 3, testes 1 2 3. Is this camera on? Is this camera on? And then all of a sudden I said, you need to be very, very quiet. I'm hunting a Raven. What? Elmer Fudd? What in the hell is Elmer Fudd doing on TV now? Why did I do that? I have no idea why I did it. It blew up the internet. They're like, Erik Watts, did he just do a Elmer Fudd impression? And so, if you know, Raven doesn't know what's going on. So now Raven, he'll have these like 2-3 minute interviews because I have to listen to him, rehearse him in his head, all Shakespeare and this, that, and the other, all the way up to Nashville. I want to choke him out, but he was very good at it. He took it very serious. And he's in the room and he doesn't know I'm coming in. And so I do this. I kick the door open. I look. I could tell he's like, Watts, what are you doing? Plus, I'm glad that he didn't pop out of character and go, Watts, what's up? Is the promo going to start? But I did give him time as I'm hunting a raven. And I looked at him and I came right at him. He booted me in the gut, DDT'd me on the concrete, which was brilliant because he had to hit me with something that I literally could be like knocked out for 2 or 3 minutes for his interview. And so I was like, God, that was brilliant. DDT'd me. Boom. I just laid there the whole time. He did his whole thing. They cut to go, and he goes, what was that bullshit? I didn't know you. I said, I didn't know I was coming either. And then he watched the show back. He goes, did you do Elmer Fudd? I'm like, yeah, I did Elmer Fudd. So there's all kinds of things. I mean, I can understand why Jeff, didn't like me on the mic with him. There's one time where it's just like, hey, go interrupt Jeff, go interrupt Jeff's interview and just dog him. I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite days in the world. So I've got the mic. I come through the audience type thing. I'm hitting the mic. I'm like, Jeff. Now, again, hear me out. Don't know what I'm going to say. They said, hey, hit a few minutes. I said, okay. And dog Jeff. That was what to say. Hey, take a few minutes to dog Jeff. Most wrestlers, if they have 2 or 3 minutes, they're nervous. They want to throw up because they're like, oh God, what am I going to say if they don't give them like a whole bunch of stuff to say? And I was just like, oh, this is going to be great. What am I going to say? So I run out of the curtain. I'm there just like I was telling you before. And I'm like, Jeff, we really need to talk. And he's just looking at me from the ring like, what are you doing out here? Please, I want to punch Vince if he sent you out here to talk to me because I don't want to have to stand this day. I'm like, Jeff, listen. I so appreciate, pro wrestling. I love pro wrestling. I said, matter of fact, I love watching wrestling every week. My favorite show, like everyone else's favorite show, was WWE. I thought to myself, I probably shouldn't have said that to the owner of TNA, right? That is really like sticking it in WWE's ear right now. I said, and think about this, it's WWE, right? It's WCW. I said, it's TNA. There's 3 like integers. There's 3 letters. That's what's famous. I said, then you got my favorite wrestler up at WWE, and what's his name? Triple H. There's something in the 3 letters, brother. I'm telling you right now. So you can't be Double J. Double J owning TNA? Did you do it because you rhyme? It's not because you can do an interview. Because let me tell you what, it's not going to work. There's no way a guy has 3 letters up at WWE is going to be beat by a guy that only has 2 letters. I said, so we got to get you to at least 3 letters. Now, in my mind, I'm going, where am I going with this? And who would be talking about letters? And I said, so Double J, from today on, I crown you Triple J. Triple J TNA, Triple H at WWE. Now people have something to watch. It's almost going to be like a WCW WWE wars, but it's going to be TNA versus WWE. And I said, and Jeff, I and all the people here know what it stands for. It stands for, and let me tell you this, had no idea where I was going with it. But then I said 3 letters. I said, I'm gonna parallel 3 letters, and then it hit me. But here's what's crazier. Every fan in there said the exact same thing I was thinking when I set it up. And I'm like, that's the craziest shit ever. Because I'll tell you the rest for here in a second. Because Vince went off at happiness. He goes, Erik, you're in such a zone. It was like The Rock when he was in a zone. There's nothing you can't say. And everyone's with you. I said, so Jeff, Triple J, you are now Jeff and I stopped. And I put up the mic and they go, jackass. And I go, Jarrett. And and that was the interview, right? But what I mean, what's the chances? If I was at WWE, we would have gone out, they would have told the audience what I was going to say or some shit like that. I mean, but it was just such a rhythm. The people were there. And it was awesome. But it was also why, and this is what's crazy, because Jeff and Vince Russo, we're inseparable. Like I truly believe that when I was at TNA, I knew that Jeff's best friend was Vince Russo, and Vince Russo's best friend was Jeff. Inseparable. It didn't mean that Jeff might not think that Vince could be a little crazy sometimes, and I'm sure that that Vince. Well, no, Vince knew that Jeff was very tough to deal with sometimes, but he would not dog Jeff. Like there's a line that's drawn. Like that'd be like saying, "Hey, Erik, your dad, he can be tough." Yep, But I didn't sit there and talk shit about my dad, right? And
Yeah.
that's and so that's the kind of thing, like you could tell that Jeff could be such a pain in the butt sometimes, and he knew it because he's the one that had to deal with it. So the way I took it is I don't have to tell him what a douche canoe he is because he's got to deal with him every day. But literally, I also knew he was his best friend. So what cracked me up though is so Vince came to me and goes, Erik, we got to talk. Jeff is furious about your interviews. he's so pissed. I'm going, well, this is a great formula for success here. He tried to take me off the show. Now I'm back on the show, and now I'm dogging the shit out of him. I said, this is fantastic. Let's just poke the bear as long as we can poke the bear, right? And he goes, do me a favor. I'm going to get you out of this, and we're going to do something, and you're going to go on to other people. He said, but he goes, I'm going to tell you something right now, and you've got to promise me this. Please tell him that I write every one of your interviews. I go, no, that's part of my deal with you. I'm no one's writing my shit. He goes, oh no, I know that I don't write any of your stuff. Jeff can't know. I go, what do you mean? He goes, because I keep on telling him, brah, the best thing of interviews is when in wrestling, it's called ribbing on the square. So ribbing on the square is making kind of fun of the truth. Right?
Yeah.
And Vince loved that. Not all the boys loved it, just so you know, but Vince loved it. So he's like, Erik. So literally, the next hour or something, like one day, Jeff comes up to me and goes, Vince is writing all that for you. I go, man, Jeff, you don't even understand. I read some of that thinking you're gonna just you're gonna lose your shit. I said, he's got a sick sense of humor. That's like, you guys are best friends, but I don't know why I call him the best friend because he writes some it's pretty evil what he does. He goes, well, show me what he wants you to say next. I go, I can't. I promised him because if I tell you what I'm going to say, then we aren't going to get a natural reaction, which is usually looks like you're maybe going to puke in your mouth and you're drooling a little bit because you want to throw up because I'm ripping your head off, but it's actually Vince ripping your head off. So don't shoot the messenger. I'm bringing the message, bro. And he's like, and so I'd have a piece of paper. I pull it out of my pocket. I go, bro, I can't let you see it. I put it back. He'd go to Vince, go off on Vince. Yo, you got to tell me. And Vince is like, Jeff, this is what I do. Let me. You know what? You're an awesome wrestler. I'm a great booker. Let me book. You wrestle. Hell, you're an owner. You're a great owner. But don't come in and mess with my mojo. That's what they did at WCW to me. You want TNA to be great, you got to let me write and do what I need. I need my creative freedom. You need to. I watch that go back and forth, and I get in the van sometimes, and I would just sit there and think to myself, this is the biggest rib ever. Like if people could have seen that on behind the scenes, it would have been priceless. It would have been priceless. So it was kind of funny because shortly after that, I started doing a thing with Abyss because Jeff didn't want any part of me. And then I was so over that Jeff went to Vince and goes, Vince, you got to tag me with Watts. You got to tag me with Watts. I'm thinking to myself, okay, now he wants me to tag with him. Like he wants me to tag with him now. I'm so over. He wants to be part of he wants the shine on him. Sure, come on, Jeff. Bring your stuff. Let's do this. But the funny thing about it is he would come to me and go, so what's Vince written you for Abyss? I'm not Abyss, so I don't have to worry about my reaction. I said, are you going to be out there? And he goes, yeah. I go, well, I can't share it with you. He's like, what? I go, that's how I that just kept on going for a while until me and Jeff weren't, doing any feuds. And honestly, then he loved me on the show. He couldn't get enough. It was just, y'all say whatever you want, do whatever you want, cuss as much as you want, and but that's how crazy I was when about speaking my mind that I've mentioned WCW, WWE. I don't give a shit what it was. I was going to speak my mind. And I guess it clicked with thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, you know?
Oh, you know what? The just the realism and the organic stuff, that is what resonates with the audience. That is what does it. And the fact that it goes to show you how over you really were, because usually a wrestler has to say something, and then after they say it a couple times, when they hold the microphone up to get the crowd participation, you got the crowd participation
Right.
without even stating what the word was. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, to show you how crazy it was, right? At TNA, you know, I was going through that divorce, and I was just telling him, I'm like, bro, you know, at this time I'm starting to go through divorce, and it was just brutal and all this other stuff, and years and years and years, right? And so I'm going through the divorce, and I'm telling Vince, I go, this chick is the most unhappy, like mean, like she was after me, right? Like she was after me, mean, and I'm like, dude, you know me. I ride up with you and Raven. We come up here, we bust our ass, same thing every time. We get in our car, we drive back to Atlanta. Raven ultimately always waits until we're about an hour outside of Atlanta. He always wants to eat at Waffle House, and he brings 2 or 3 comic books, and he wants to read all 3 comic books. Right? I said, and it drives me insane. He's like, yeah, but he doesn't drink, he doesn't party anymore. Let him do it. I go, here's the difference, dude. I still have companies to run. Not that that's a big deal, but you know what? If the show's over at, let's say, 10 o'clock, that's Tennessee time. Then
Yeah.
it's 11 Atlanta. By the time we get out, it's midnight Atlanta. By the time we drive, it's a 3.5 hour drive, 3.5 hour drive. Plus, then he wants to read comic books. So now we're getting home at 5:30. Well, I was like, hey, bro, here's the problem. You know, now my wife is giving me a hard time thinking that I'm like banging some of the people here at TNA.
Mm.
He goes, what are you talking about? I go, oh, she knows me and Goldilocks are together. I mean, she knows it. I mean, like in her head, she lives that I am with. I said, so by the time I get home and I'm talking to her and want to see the kids and all this other stuff, this is not so bueno. I'm just gonna explain it to you. He's
But
like,
Goldilocks was just a storyline.
she was a storyline, but like I told you, to go back to how sick Vince was. Vince goes, wow. And I said, and dude, I said, she's shutting off all my credit cards and everything like that. I mean, like we both have teams of lawyers. This is not a small divorce. This is a big divorce. He goes, oh, wow, she's really mad. I go, oh, she's really mad. He goes, do you think that she would wrestle Goldilocks? So the whole time, so what ends up happening is all of a sudden he's like, hey, don't you know Trick Pony and Iradine? So the next week I said, yeah. He goes, we're going to say that you're with Goldilocks now and your wife's mad at you and that she shut off your credit cards. I go, she is mad at me. She did shut off my credit cards. And I said, but I mean, I got money, but I'm just saying, he goes, oh, but let's play it like you're just totally broke and Goldilocks has to help you and you'll do anything. So you're going to go to Iradine, you're going to be a stagehand. And so, what are you doing, you know? And so then he starts playing us out week to week. It's like I come home and go, oh, God, she's so mad. You know, like what? And so then one day he's like, hey, you know, I need your wife to come in. Now she's so mad, and she's going to attack Goldilocks. I'm like, are you insane right now? So we ended up doing that 2 weeks in a row, which Goldilocks was petrified. You know, she didn't come in to be a wrestler. She didn't come in for anything. And she knew the truth. She knew that my wife thought we were having an affair, which it's crazy because Goldilocks was dating someone at TNA, right?
Okay.
So there's no we never had that relationship. We were always I was always just so blown away at what a professional she was. She was out of her element in pro wrestling, but she wanted a music career, and the PR that she got from being on TNA, and she's in Nashville. The girl's brilliant. She was doing this to push her singing career, right?
Mm.
I mean, she really was. So I was like, I gotta hand it to you. You know your place. You never said you're a wrestler. You never said you're a manager. You didn't say shit. You said I want some extra promotion. So stick me on the show a few times. I'll do promotion. Then when I got there, all of a sudden it got kind of like the manager thing, and the next thing you know, they're pulling her in to do some spots, right? And I will say that first time my wife came into that ring, Because she's like, Erik, please tell me she won't hurt me. Well, my wife is a pretty tough chick, you know. I mean, she was an athlete. I met her. I was on college scholarship for football. She was there for track. She was always in shape. I mean, this is a tough chick. Oh, that poor Goldilocks. I could just hear her scream. My wife pulled her hair out and just slung her around the ring, just whooped her ass. I was like, okay. So I got back and she goes, I thought your wife. I said, oh, no, it must have been the adrenaline. She's like, I'll never do that again. So it was like the day later, I was talking to Vince. I said, Jesus, I think Georgie just got my wife. I think she just killed her. She goes, oh, my God, I know. I don't even know how I'm going to talk her into telling her it's going to happen again next week. I go, what?
Oh,
So yeah. So then go yeah. So then you got to understand. My wife is in the back. I've got to talk to Goldilocks because we've got the angle. So then he wants me to tell Goldilocks what Georgie's going to do. Then I got to go tell Georgie. So now Georgie's staring at Goldilocks, going, "See, he's talking to her right in front of me." So it's amping her up. Goldilocks is looking at me, going, Is she going to kill me tonight? She almost killed me last night. I go, we can't really talk right now because she thinks that you and me are messing around. So we're going to have to wait until she goes back out of the audience so that we can talk because we may not make it to the pay-per-view. She may shoot me and shoot you. I'm not sure what's going to happen, right? And so we did it, and we pulled it off. But it was all, Goldilocks is just a team player. I mean, completely lied to her. I said, oh no, I said adrenaline because Georgie set her up, pretty good that next time too. But ratings were great, things were great. And a matter of fact, for a short period of time after that second match, when she came to get her man back, and at the very end, me and my wife are standing in the ring together, and Goldilocks is now out of the picture. Actually, when I came home, there was a few weeks of actual happiness. so I guess there is something to writing in some of the reality, but it was crazy. It was crazy.
man, great times. And I was just thinking when you were talking about Jeff wanting to tag with you. Actually, I remember when you and Jeff did work a tag match in TNA, but against each other. It was you and AJ Styles against Jeff Jarrett and Abyss, and that was actually the week before you had to face Don Callis with the DOA title on the line or whatever. Like if you lose, your career would be over. You wouldn't be in
Yeah,
the DOA anymore.
yeah. So with Jeff, that's just how much heat I had, right? Because I've known Don Callis for years and years and years and years, and Don and I got along phenomenally. He's the utmost professional, right? But Don Callis isn't a wrestler, and so the ultimate touche to me was Jeff said, "I want him to wrestle Don," and I think it was main event that night too.
It
Main
was.
event, and I think they said they wanted like a 30-minute match, which Don Callis wasn't in shape to go 4 minutes. Um, and he came to me and goes, Erik, what are we going to do for 30 minutes? I said, I am going to do as much walking and talking and da. We'll get through it, baby. We'll get through it. And he's like, Erik, this is crazy. Well, then they waited, and then they said, well, Don, you're going over. He was he was so hurt, so upset. I was looking like, okay, hold on a second. So out of all the things you want to do with me, you want to take the DOA away from me because Dusty Rhodes wants it, and the way you're going to choose to do this, which no one knew that he was going to do that night. Vince couldn't even hardly tell me the decision. He's like, bro, I got to talk to you. I got to talk to you. Jeff wants to strip you. He wants to give it to Dusty. And so Don Callis is going to beat you tonight. I'm like, what? I mean, huh? And it's not real. It's entertainment, but it was again going back to that peg. Like, so this is how someone deals with business. This is how
Yeah.
you deal with this shit. The greatest thing ever, though, is Callis was freaking out, and we went out there. And from the reviews I got from people like the Ravens and the people that I trust, he said, everyone said there's no way ever that they thought Don Callis would have that good a match, that anyone would have that good a match. Not dogging Don Callis, not wrestling, not up to date with it, not, you follow me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Going that long. Oh, yeah. And Don did too. He goes, Erik, that was actually really good. I go, no, it was actually really, really good. And to me, I'm also thinking to myself, think about this oxymoron. So he wants to. So Jeff is pulling the punch to finally try to take away the mic from me and at TNA. And so then he's going to beat me with Don Callis, which thinks he's going to make fun of me. But they booked it for main event for his show. Like, think about what if that match would have been a turd. How many viewers would they have lost the next week? Minus the fact that they're probably going to lose some viewers anyway, stripping the DOA for me. Other than the fact that now people are going to watch it to say, so what are they going to do with Erik now, right? But to me, product wise, I am blown away that I'm blown away in life that people will go so far to prove a point or be a jerk off that they'll cut off their nose to spite their face. It's TNA. He has ownership, and that's what you're going to make the main event. It was mind-boggling. But then again, to where I was at already, I had made it. I'd proven it. Everyone in the back knew it. Everyone that watched it knew it. You knew it. All the interviews I do to this day, they know it. It was proven. I'm like, hey, this is the way he wants to do business. That's on him. Really, it's on him. So I wasn't that dude, because maybe me somewhere else, or not me somewhere else. I'm saying maybe like I told you, like what happened at WWE. If I was that type of dude that wanted to go fight, meaning verbally, and bitch to Dixie or push Vince or whatever, I probably could have done it. I could have gone to Ravens and people that were there, right? Say, hey, I could have probably gone to Dusty and say, can we find a better way for the transit? I could have probably gone anywhere. As soon as they told me, I go, that is so crazy, right? And you and me've talked about it. It's just a theme that when someone gets to that point and they do that, I just go, hey, shame on them, whatever. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go out and try to have the best match. And I'm so excited because everyone is just laughing. It's going to be what they call 100% curtain call. Everyone was going to go watch that match to know it was going to fail.
And you guys did have a great match. To be honest, I was expecting nothing out of it with you and Don Callis, really.
Right.
When I even ordered the pay-per-view still, because I'm like, I got to see it through. But, I didn't expect anything. And once you guys came out of that, I'm like, wow. I thought the same thing. I'm like, this match was good. I wasn't happy with the result because I was loving the whole DOA gimmick. But you just brought up another great point about Jeff doing business.
Right.
I know we spoke off the air. I don't know if this is something that you want to talk about on the air, but it just made me think of this story that you told me, talking about how Jeff is doing business with this situation. What about the whole Brian Urlacher situation?
Right. So what a great situation, right? How stupid this is. So first of all, I'm not saying people on your podcast right now will know who Trick Pony is, but if you go back to look at the group Trick Pony, they had number ones on the country charts, Pour Sugar on Me, some other stuff. I had just flown out to Vegas to do "I'm Not the Bride" video with them. It was hilarious. A video called "I'm Not the Bride," and they decided to have Gene Simmons as the preacher in this video, right? And that's how I got to know Gene Simmons and that stuff. So we're doing all this stuff. Trick Pony's hot as heck. Trick Pony comes and makes like one or two appearance in videos and vignettes for free for me, for free, for free.
Wow.
Didn't pay them, but who shows up on a show for free? Okay, so now. But when you're with the federation, you do everything you can to put that on the map. I'm competitive. I want us to compete with the WWE. I want to do it. So at the time, Brian Urlacher, right after I think it was his second year in football, third year in football, I can't remember. He was the number one selling jersey. Brian Urlacher was his first year or second year in NFL. He just had negotiated one of the largest contracts for a linebacker. I think it was like 6 or 7 years, $54 million, $53 million. He was set for the Pro Bowl. And in WWE, because he's the hottest thing in the NFL at this time, I was with you when we were talking to Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan wanted him to be the first football player with the Jordan emblem because Michael Jordan had just come to a deal with Nike that he wanted to venture out of just being basketball, right? So the Jordan brand is one of the largest brands of all of Nike. And then Jordan goes, okay, but now I want to go outside basketball. I want a football player, a hockey player, a soccer player, blah, blah. He contacted Brian Urlacher to be his first guy. Brian turned it down, didn't do it, but that's how popular Brian Urlacher is. Now, here's Brian Urlacher. WWE's negotiated something with him. I heard like $250,000 for them to show up at WrestleMania. I can't remember whether that WrestleMania Mania was in the new Soldiers Field or what in Chicago. I don't know what it was. I had so much going on, and I was like, "Well, hey Brian, I got a favor to ask you." And he's like, "Yeah." And I can't remember the angle at the time. I don't know what was going on. You may remember what was going on, but I had an up and coming match with like Jeff or someone,
Yes,
and
it was
and
that.
I called.
It was that tag team match actually that I spoke of with you and AJ Styles against Jeff and Abyss. I think this was the week before that, like it was coming up, and everybody knew it was coming up. I'm
Right.
pretty sure.
Well, so from what I remember, what was supposed to happen is so I call up Brian Urlacher. Well, Bryce, I call it Bryce, his best friend at the time, and his agent. And I said, hey, I know that you guys like pro wrestling, and I said, and I'm sure Vince is offering you a lot of money. I said, but what's the chances that you guys turn down WWE and come make an appearance at TNA? And so Brian goes, anything for you, bro. I go, really? Anything for me? He goes, yeah. He goes, what will be the agreement? I go, a limo, airfare for you and Bryce, your agent, first class, to and from, and the nicest hotel, maybe, I guess, in Nashville, and that's it. He goes, hold on a second. You're not going to pay me anything. I go, no, I'm not asking you. I'm not trying to get you a payday, $250,000, $1 million. Not that I'm mad about it. I said, but I know TNA doesn't have that much money, right? So to me, I don't want to F the deal up. I'm like, hey, I'm going to have Brian Urlacher come, and I think Urlacher was going to come and be in my corner or something, and for a match, and all the shit's going to happen. So him and Bryce fly down. They're there early. We eat the restaurant right there, down at the bottom of the hill, and we come back up. We're hanging out all day. As soon as he gets done with his match, he's got to fly back the next morning to Chicago because he's got to go to Hawaii for the Pro Bowl, right? So I mean,
Okay.
and I didn't know. He didn't tell. I mean, I knew about that. He didn't tell. I thought he would tell the Chicago Bears and all that. He didn't tell anyone. Next thing you know, he shows up. Another great one. So I think the night he showed up, they did something. So I got into it with someone in the back, and I was banned from the building that night. So they took my match away from me, and they took the star that I brought in that was going to be in my corner and took it away, still put him on the show, had him come in, clothesline someone, throw someone, off the thing and all this other stuff. And Brian was like, I didn't come here for any other reason. I didn't come here because I'm a TNA fan. I came here because you and me are buddies. You came out to speak at my football camp. You played the celebrity basketball tournament at my camp for me. You and your boys were on all the celebrity golf tournaments together. I did this because we're friends. That's why I came and did for free. So he wasn't even going to do it. He's like, no, well, I'll just go back. I'm cool. I'm like, no, you can't do that. So he still went and did his deal. Well, huge. Like the internet went crazy. Plus, think about what a slap in the face to Vince McMahon, right?
Oh
you
yeah.
know, but I was just showing people, man, if you believe in the product enough that you can sell someone else on the product enough, and you're doing it for the love of the promotion of the business, money is not always the necessity to make someone come do something. It could be friendship. There's so many different ways you can get people to support you. Just as I went and supported many of my friends and things, I didn't get paid to go be in I'm Not the Bride with Ira and them. They paid for my airfare, but my hotels were always free out there. But still, they paid for my airfare. I didn't say, so how much am I going to get? I was just so excited to be in their video with them. Gene Simmons hanging out, good time. And I got to be honest with you, I had wrestled the night before. They were doing 3 days of shooting. I only got there for 1 day of shooting, so I was only there maybe 6 hours, which isn't much on shooting. Most of the time you start early and they're 19-hour days. I did a few shots and flew back. I was supposed to be one of the main characters. I couldn't be one of the main characters because I had to wrestle a pay-per-view or something like that prior to that, you know. But you do things for friends. Hey, would you do a cameo? Sure, I'll do a cameo. Would you do a cameo? Sure, I'll do a cameo. Right. So even then, when I set that up, there is no way Brian Urlacher is at that place. $0. Do you think he gives a shit about first class airfare or a hotel in Nashville? Could care less. He came
Yeah.
because he believed in his good friend, and he believed his friend believed in it. And the way I got slapped in the face when that, I was like, "Are you?" I was. My mind could not process that. When Vince came up and told me that, I go, "Dude, this is too much." I mean, honestly, God, this is too much. I should just pull Brian from the show. You know, no one's gonna know. You know, yeah, I promoted it, Brian Urlacher, da 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 da. We promoted it, you know, but should have pulled him from the show. But I'm not vindictive like that. But some people are, and that's what they do. And hey, you know what? Karma sucks. You know.
Yeah, that's for sure, man. Now,
Yeah.
after DOA, and that gimmick ended, um, what were you told at that point? Like, what was the plans for you after the DOA gimmick was done? Because I mean, that was incredibly over, and I can only imagine how difficult it
Right.
had to be to basically try to start over when you're pulling something away that's just so hot.
Right. So I can't remember because time travels so fast for me. I can't remember. I think it was kind of shortly after that all of a sudden they're going to go to the six-sided ring, which was the dumbest thing I've ever. I'm like, you guys are wanting to go to an octagon because the UFC is so hot, which is cage fighting, and you guys are absolutely not thinking at all, right? Because everyone learns go to your right in America, you go to left in Mexico, but you got rhythms and TNA had so many high flyers that believe it or not, when you start having 6 posts to come off of, yeah, sure, a year, 2 years, 3 years, if we were like training in a 6 ring, you know, and go, but no, it was just automatically people were supposed to understand it, right?
Yeah.
And I can tell you it messed a lot of people up because if you're calling a spot out, if you're calling a spot in the ring and you say, hey, I'm going to pull you back, I'm going to throw you off, give me a one tackle, drop down, leapfrog, hip toss, um, 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 reverse elbow, and get it again, and you're calling that spot really quick, which that's how you do it, and then you shoot, you say you got it, and you shoot off, and you go. Well, when you go to shoot someone, you go to throw them, you're now going, okay, are they going to go to that rope or this rope? So even that confusion, because now you got to run a spot. They've got to be doing 100%. You've got to be doing 100%, and and the ropes weren't that far away. So a lot of times, like when you're pushing someone back into a rope, especially like if I drop kick you and you're getting up, and I'm coming to meet you with a forearm to push you back into the ropes and go for our next spot, and you know it's our next spot. Now I've got to come at you, give you the forearm, and wonder what rope you're going to sell it to come right back off and do something else. So you know you're sitting going, okay, can it be done? Sure, it can be done, but why be done on national TV in real time in front of everyone? Why not give a period of time for people to train? Didn't want to do it. Then they're going to go to Orlando. Let me explain something to you. I love Disney. I love going for Disney.
Oh, all right, hold on here, guys. We got a disconnect here. Let's see. We'll get Erik back in.
I'm
There
on.
we go. Now you're back.
I don't know what happened. It just dropped. So neither here nor there. Both times, I think I did it 2 times or maybe 3 times. I think early at WCW one year they went to Orlando for a while. Horrible. And then I think that second run with WCW they went to Orlando. horrible. And I know the idea, the times that people went to Orlando was Orlando makes you an attraction, right? And say, hey, you're an attraction. And so all those TV cameras and all that come at such a huge discount, so your production goes way down, your cost of production. But TNA was built on the fact that they were in Nashville. The same people came and watched it all the time in the same arena, same thing. So now you're going to take a show that's once a week. Now you're going to take it down to Orlando. You're going to take 2 or 3 weeks of show per day, or like you're going to do a show here and a show there. You're going to start doing this in front of an audience that watches on TV, but they're not the same people. They don't know the same things. So now it's fresh audiences all the time. Like we had heel sections and different sections in the arena. It made it so very special, right? That's like a whole bunch of people get together and do a concert. And they're like, we want to do a famous concert. We're gonna do it in Woodstock. Nah, let's do it in San Diego Bay. Like, no, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. Why are you changing your tradition, right? It is mind boggling. So now they're going to do it. And I'm telling you, I don't care what anyone says. No wrestling show has ever been successful in Orlando. It doesn't. It's almost like every time it's the death of the federation that goes down there.
It is.
Not anything against Disney, but we're not an attraction, because now you get some amusement park goers that are like, hey, let's go see the attraction, and a lot of times they thought it's a free attraction, right? Because they're nailing you at the entrance to get in. So now you get some people that have been in the sun. It's hot as piss. They don't want to spend $14 on a Coke, and their kids just need some time to relax or go to sleep. And, oh, hey, let's go into this free attraction. It was the craziest thing ever, right? So shortly, the Orlando was coming, this was coming, and I think it was all just coming to a head. The whole, pull the rug under me on the DOA, the Urlacher. It was just one thing after another after another. And so I don't know how close, but it was turning into where I was going to do something with Raven and Dallas. And so I was getting excited again. I changed my outfits again. And now I've got major stuff going on in my personal life, and a huge battle, a huge divorce, custody, all kinds of stuff that's coming down the pike. And my team of lawyers said, we think our best angle is to have you out of pro wrestling. We can, if we say basically that you cannot wrestle any longer because of all the blood and all the stuff, now it will change everything from in financial negotiations. If you can never wrestle anymore, it's completely different than you being a star on a pay-per-view show, put it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point, I had just enough again that I was like, I don't even know why I jumped back in this, but listen, I'm not mad at it, because had I not jumped back in, I would have never had those experiences that a lifetime of experience. It was some of the greatest times I've ever had. Even though behind the scenes, it was some of the most earth-shattering, like painful things, especially when I'm bringing in talent and doing things. But I was just like, you know what? That's cool. And I called Dixie, and like I said, it sucked because I just had beaten Raven, and we were getting ready to do something big with that DDP, and DDP's a legend, and things like that. And so I would have finally been matched with some people that weren't booking, but they were powerful enough to call their own shots. Therefore, if I'm in an angle where someone's calling their own shots, then I know that they'll have my best interest, and it would have been fantastic. But the timing, it was just done. It was done for me. I didn't have any more to give. I have any more to give. Not Dixie. I love Dixie. I had no more to give Jeff Jarrett.
I
And I
got
hope, and again, Jeff, who knows who he is, who knows if he's a changed guy, who knows how he acts today, who knows, blah, blah, blah. He'd been going through a lot of stuff in his life as well. And so who knows? So Jeff the wrestler, like in the ring wrestler, I think he's one of the best. Jeff the interviewer, horrible. Jeff the TNA owner, just selfish, self-centered, non-businessman, put it that way. So that's how I feel about it. If I saw Jeff out in a parking lot or at a restaurant and he said, I would sit down and talk with him like I'm talking to you. I don't hold a grudge about it, because just like in my college career, just like at WCW, people make decisions. And when people make decisions out of insecurity and ignorance, you have two ways to look at life. You can get your head down and be upset and use it as a whipping post. Oh, I was so awesome and they were so stupid. And you can cry about a whole bunch of stuff. But the one thing that my mom had raised me, she goes, you cannot dictate the cards you are dealt, but you damn sure can play the cards the way you have them. And so if every time I was played a bad hand or handed a bad hand, I used my cards to bluff as long and play the game as good and as strategic as I could. Okay. But I didn't get mad at the cards I was dealt. And when dealers,
Yeah.
unless someone's cheating, right, which happens, but cards are dealt upside down, right? You don't see them. You got to pick them up. If you're going to be great at poker, you don't know when your next great hand is. But what you need to know is your opponent needs to think every time you have a great hand, unless you want to joker him in and show a bad hand in his mind and beat him. Life is a mental game. And those that succeed understand it's a mental game, and that they have no control per se of what's brought to them, but they have all the control of how they deal with what's brought to them.
That's an amazing perspective. You couldn't have said it any better, really. You really couldn't have said it better. And I'm thinking and I'm processing, through the time. I know the match with Raven was your last match at Final Resolution 2005. Now, shortly after that, I know was when, some shit in TNA, or when they started calling TNA Impact, stuff started to go down, especially with Jeff.
Yeah.
It seemed like Dixie, she got more of the majority, and then I think it was later on in 2006 that's when Kurt Angle came in, and the next thing you know, the whole wrestling world was turned upside down with Jeff Jarrett ending up with Kurt Angle's wife, and oh, it was crazy, man. It was a crazy time even then,
Well, I mean,
and
think about it. People don't change their spots. Okay, they just don't. They do. Well, hold on. Unless there's a major revolution in their life, right? I mean, they're
yeah,
I can't say that for sure. I've seen Lex Luger. I watched that man knowing that he was Satan. And then one day, not one day, but within 3-4 months, major stuff happens to him in his life. And he is one of the kindest, most beautiful people I've ever met. So I'm not saying that people cannot change, but then a change happens and then they're consistently that way. That's why I'm saying I don't know Jeff today, but the same guy that can bring in a talent end up being with a man's wife. He ran his business like he ran his relationship. He was screwing everybody. And by doing it, he screwed himself. So now, listen, I don't know if they're still together or what, but I will also say Jeff tends to be a little bit lucky
yeah,
because I don't know about Kurt Angle's street experience as far as street fighting, but a guy that is as decorated as he is as an amateur wrestler could tie Jeff into 19 knots. So,
oh,
so Jeff might be pretty lucky because I don't think anything ever happened between Kurt and Jeff, and I don't know, maybe Kurt's a good guy and goes, hey, that says more about my wife than Jeff. I don't know how those guys interact, but no, it was chaotic. Put it this way, it was total chaos all the time in the back, the locker rooms, and then every time someone came into TNA that was part of the clique that Jeff had at WWE, everything changed again. Kevin and 1, 2, 3 Kid, or X-Pac, whatever you want to call the people. Every time someone came in that had some stroke that Jeff remembered as kind of part of the clique at WWE, I heard things change dramatically. The The only people that I ever saw Jeff around that was part of the clique that never changed Jeff's thought process, what meaning not change it, didn't change it so dramatically as Road Dogg. Road Dogg is one of the most beautiful people because Road Dogg didn't worry about anyone else. He just worried about himself per se. He loved pro wrestling. He cared so much about pro wrestling. So I could never see. Now listen, I never saw Road Dogg behind the scenes, but he's always so kind, always so good. That he wasn't a guy that wanted any part of the politics that I ever saw. Now there's a lot of other guys that they come in and that's just what they want. They want to be about politics. They want to pull triggers. They want to say what they want to say, do what they want. And if you're around a weak ownership, right? All of a sudden, these guys that have never been successful bookers. Now, I didn't say they weren't successful talent, okay? But I'm saying that haven't been successful bookers that never ran a successful wrestling business, and then now you're paying the athlete to tell you what you need to do with your team. When you get around weakness, most of the time they drain the person in charge, i.e. Eric Bischoff, WCW goes bankrupt, right?
Yeah.
I.e. a lot of times at WWE, from what I understand, it's the top guys, if they got tired of a booker, they wanted a new booker because that was their way of trying to get to Vince, because Vince has the ultimate say so, but they're not going to go tell Vince. So they'll buddy up with Gorilla Monsoon or the newest booker, da 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 da, and then when they don't, they'll start talking shit about that booker, right? But Vince is so good at what he does, he doesn't allow the puppets to bring him down. That at TNA, that wasn't going to happen. Dixie's as nice as Dixie can be. She became a great character on the show, but she didn't
She
have
did.
she didn't have wrestling acumen. She needed a Vince Russo and stuff like that to keep it together. But Vince wrote, Jeff put the stamp on things. But now when you start getting people coming in like Eric Bischoff and Nash and these guys, and they're pulling their strings for their own promotion, and you have no one there to stop it, it becomes total chaos, is all I'm saying. That's
Exactly.
it. It reminds me, I used to love going to some independent shows. I didn't do a whole bunch of independent shows like you and me talked. I've always been pretty blessed, been at big federations, but I used to love going to independent shows, and they'll pay this former name to come do an autograph session and then put him on the show, and he's only going to be there for one time, right? So you got this independent show that does 200 or 300 people once a month, and now they bring in some, guy that used to be on WCW or WWE or WWF. He's going to come in, he's going to sign autographs, and they want him to wrestle a match. I can't tell you how many times I saw this. And the next thing you know, they're in the back going, well, this is what I think you should do with the show. And this is what I think you should do with the show. And then, why don't we do this? Why don't you have me beat your guy in the middle and we'll do a return match? So now they're trying to book to get another booking when they don't understand the people did not bring them in for them to be there every month because they can't afford them. The people
Yeah.
on the show are making $5, $10, $15. This person's getting $1,000, $2,000. They're just hoping that enough of the picture sales and enough of the ticket sales will cover them, and the fans will continue to come see it. It's called a generator. So every once in a while, when you got your fans, you want a generator to boost the energy, and then you ride that out. So if you go from 300 or 400 people, you bring in someone with a big name, and you go to 1,000. What you're hoping is you're not going to have 1,000 the next time you wrestle, but if you can have 500 or 600, you just gained 100, 200. And if you keep your booking consistent, you can build off those. Because Lord knows you don't have the money to bring guys in like that. But before you know it, they're going to have a guy coming in telling them what to do and how to run their show. They're going to win, and they do it. They do it because they mark out for who they brought in. Which realistically, if you're running a true independent show, unless you're bringing in a top name to run like a tag team or a gimmick match, that doesn't matter. If you're ever bringing in a big name to wrestle your big name, well, guess where they're coming in? They're coming into your federation. So I don't give a shit if you're from WWE or WCW or ECW. Back in the old day, if you went to a federation, small or not, and you're wrestling their champ beats you. Because when you leave to go back to WWE and WCW or wherever the hell you're going, they still need their champ to be champ. Well, I would see that at the indie shows, and I would just laugh. I'd pull the promoter aside and say, "You're going to lose your shirt, and you're going to continue losing your shirt. If you bring someone in to pay them, why do you? Well, but do you know who that is? I know exactly who that is. He's an idiot. Hey, I got friends, and I teach business all the time. I got people all the time. They'll come to me and say, "Well, should I give this guy respect and this guy respect for doing this in the business or doing that in the business?" I'm like, you don't even know him. What do you owe? Can you next time you want to go shoot basketball, why don't you call LeBron James and mine and say, hey, I've been watching you all the time. I'm gonna be in a court in in Los Angeles. I hope you're not upset if I wear your number and your jersey on a court and play basketball, because the only reason I can breathe is because you're a basketball player. Listen, you have to, when you run business, you have to think about your business, your employees, and you have to be profitable at all times. And minus all that, you don't have time to sit there and worry about someone that doesn't even know who the hell you are and they're not affecting your business. You don't have to ask anybody, right? If you bring me in to your independent and you say my champion is going to beat you in 2 seconds, I'll go, awesome. I'll give him the best 2 seconds ever. Because I'm not there for Erik Watts. I'm there for that independent promotion.
You know what, Eric? And that's exactly why, not to get off topic, but it just made me think that's exactly why I'm here. You know, all these other, you know, interviewers out there. I mean, there's good ones, no doubt. There's good ones, but there's just some people out there that just they want to push their own brand, their own product, and they want to get themselves out there. Me, I just want to give back to professional wrestling and thank the sport for everything that it's done for me, and just
Mm-hmm.
have some great conversations and talk with great people like yourself.
Sure, sure. Well, listen, I have met people that run FanFest or whatever, right? And they become kind of a character or part of the show, right? And I've known a few people that in my time have actually run really good FanFest because they had a name for always supplying the wrestlers they advertised, being on time, and it being a good FanFest to go to. Okay, so if you're consistently, and then you know what, they can be all the character they want to, right? I mean, Bill Barons, and you can go to some of these guys that ran little, these different people that ran indie shows or did whatever, and yeah, they made a name for themselves in that show, but they made their name as a good booker or a good promoter or bring in good talent. Okay, there's going to be people that have podcasts that they are going to be bigger than the show, a la Joe Rogan, right? Joe Rogan can pull all these guests because he's freaking Joe Rogan. And if I want to be there, I want to be on there to tell them about one of my companies or what I'm doing or what product I'm selling, because I'm going to get a cajillion views and people hearing my name product. So it goes both ways. That's a different setup than you have, right? And more people, I believe more people need to do it like you do, because what I told you was me living, breathing pro wrestling. My father understands and put it in us how important it is for people to be out as historians and promoter of the sports. Just like my dad always used to advertise the amateur wrestling clubs and the 4-H clubs and all the different clubs when he was going to the towns, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because he said, hey, back then, I want people to understand amateur wrestling, and now this is pro wrestling, and there was a step. It wouldn't work today because everyone knows it's entertainment, so they're like, I don't know why I gotta watch pro wrestling. But my dad was always promoting and fundraising for every small town that we ran. You do the same thing. You are here to promote wrestling, bring on people so you can share the story, so that if there's someone out there that hasn't heard the story, doesn't know, might not know as much about the business, if they can hear someone that gets on here raw, that's why I've taken the time to do. I'm going to do 4 episodes with you, buddy. I've not done 4 episodes with anybody, but I'm willing to do this and at length, even though you and me are getting ready to go shut it off really soon now
Yep.
because we're an hour and 40. But my point to you is, I'm not doing this per se for you, and I'm not doing it per se for me. But without you, I wouldn't be able to do this. Therefore, I'm going to invest in it. If one person or 1,000 people hear this and it makes them wonder and enjoy wrestling, and they go back and watch old wrestling or they watch new wrestling, you and me are taking the time to reinvest in what we loved as kids to watch. and follow. And it paid all my meals when I was a kid, and it paid all my kids' meals when they were kids. Pro wrestling did. Yes, I had other ventures that paid well. Yes, I got it. But I'm just saying, pro wrestling means a lot to me. It meant a lot to my family. And I believe it's very serious to continue to give back. And this is part of me giving back. Someone said, hey, man, oh my gosh, the first interview you did with that one dude, man, it was like 3 hours. I was like, yeah, it was. Oh, man. That's a lot. I go, I don't know. How was it? Oh, I loved all 3 hours. Well, then we did good, because guess what? If you haven't seen the second show, it was 4. I got people that have been hitting me up about your show. I got people that were hitting me up about the show in Australia. Great Britain, all this other stuff. Hey, listen, if it gets people talking, and it gets people into watching it and enjoying it to where they're buying old stuff. Listen, I every quarter I get checks from WWE every quarter still to this date, paying me on any kind of merch and or DVDs or anything of any sales of my character when I was at WWE. Still to this day. I sit there almost every time and want to call Vince and go, Vince, thanks so much. The difference is that Vince would go, well, I mean, that's part of the business, right? But I open it
Yep.
up because I'm still boggled that people are still buying the DVDs from 1997, 1998, 1999. It's mind-boggling. But it's because there's new generations of people that are sharing it with their sons, grandsons, nieces, nephews. They come back and they watch it. That helps a lot of pro wrestlers and a lot of people that were in this industry. That helps them. It helps promote the next generation so that we keep wrestling alive, so that in 10 years, 15, 20 years, there will still be pro wrestling. That's
That's
why I'm so glad that Stephanie fell in love with Hunter. Hunter loves pro wrestling. He has always loved everything about pro wrestling. I don't care how people feel. I'll tell you this much. If it's left to Hunter and Stephanie, there will be a next generation of pro wrestling. But
absolutely.
you do understand that at any time, if Vince wants to go sell out to anyone he wants to sell out, he can sell out and he can be done with it, and they may be a character in it or something like that, or he may sell it all out, right? And so then they would have to start their next. But the Hunter I know, he would probably take the money he made from all his wrestling success, and he'd probably start another federation.
Yeah.
I mean, there was an entertainment company that came from Europe. That's who bought out UFC. I mean, the Maloofs are very wealthy brothers. That their father years back owned 2 different huge counties, Vegas and somewhere else. All the Budweiser or Coors, right? He was the distributor, so they made a crap load of money. And then these 2 young guys were like, huh? Well, I want to try to open a casino. We've been in Nevada all the time, open up the Palms. Now they're opening the Palms, and what are they doing? These kids were distributors, right? So now all of a sudden they're busting their butt, making their dream live with a casino. And they go, we've always wanted to own a sports team. They bought the Sacramento Kings. The hell they know about Sacramento Kings or whatever it was. I think it was Sacramento Kings. And
It
and so
was.
they bust their butt over there, and then they've got this guy that's one of their friends from Vegas, Dana White, that was watching this UFC way back in the day when it was getting ready to go out of business, when the Gracies had it, because the Gracies sat there and they're awesome, and they're like the fathers of the UFC, but they were a little too early to promote a blood sport. They were advertising UFC back in the day like ECW did, how much blood. And it was so bloody and so gory that the majority of your stations didn't want to cover it. So now they're sitting there gonna go out of business. The Gracies are gonna go out of business because the ratings sucked butt. Dana White loved it. He went to the Maloofs and said, guys, I don't have the money to buy it. I don't. I'm just going to tell you that there is something huge here. There is something huge here. Would you back me? And they go, we don't want to run it. We'll put the money in. They put up, I think it was $1 million freaking dollars. They bought that little company that was going to go out of business for $1 million, and they sold it a few years back? What was it? $3 billion?
Yeah.
Three
Yeah.
three $3 billion. Okay. So I mean that's the history of things. I remember when my dad, when I was young, there's 23 territories, right? You can name the guys that own the territories. Now NWA, that used to be a franchise, and there used to be different franchises in NWA. In fact, my dad's first federation was when he bought into partnership of the NWA franchise out in Oklahoma with Leroy McGurk. I've got pictures of my dad in Vegas at NWA convention in Vegas with all the owners of the different territories of NWA back in the 60s, late 60s or something like that, man. So it's that history. It's people like you that want to keep on telling the story, hopefully sending that signal out to the universe. The people that hear it get involved in it, love it, and they listen to many podcasts or watch many shows so that your kids can have the same wonderful life as my kids and I had due to my dad being in it, and so forth and so on. Just like I used to sit there and talk with Dustin and Dusty and Barry Windham and Blackjack Mulligan and Vern Gagne and Greg Gagne and the Grahams and the Andersons and the frickin' Von Erichs. All of us bleed the same blood of pro wrestling. Yes, the sacredness, that a lot of that changed, right? Now they don't call spots in the ring; they memorize them. But in every one of those matches, somewhere there, it's still pro wrestling. It's not the same form necessarily, but it's still pro wrestling, and it's still something people can go and pay their money and get away from all their problems, and they can yell, scream, cry, cheer, drink, dance. They can do whatever the hell they want. I've had people come up and say, "Oh my God, Eric, thank you so much for that match tonight." I go, "Oh man, thank you for showing up." They go, "You know what? I had the worst day at work today, and the guy you wrestled, I just sat there the whole time envisioning he was my boss and you were me, and he talked shit to me like he did today, and you beat his ass." And so I sat there and watched for 15 minutes you whooping my boss's ass. Now I could never tell my boss that, but it was nice. I'm like, well, thank God, and please don't tell your boss I whooped his ass. No, I mean, it's a release, or there's people there that their life is just doing good and they want to celebrate, right? That's the
Yep.
one thing. That's the one thing my dad. Most all of our matches, we made sure there was bright lights that were very, very, very hard to wrestle under because it was so hot. Like in a lot of my dad's places in that ring maybe 90, 95 degrees because those back in the day they didn't have LED. It was like floodlights. A lot of. But then he wanted it dark, dark, dark. And the reason why he wanted it like a closet was, one, if all you can see is the ring, that's all you're gonna look at. But then you're not, all of a sudden, before you know it, you're not worried about how your mom, dad, girlfriend, boyfriend, the person next to you feels about you yelling, screaming, crying. You can lose yourself. So if you
Yep.
can imagine sticking yourself in a closet and then putting a flat screen TV and being able to just yell and speak and live through how you feel watching that TV, that's how my dad made every show. And that's why you would see people cry and cheer and yell USA and all those other things, just for those same reasons, right? It's getting to be more show, but this generation needs something as a release, right? We got music festivals, they're huge, right? But we need more releases, because think about this: September 11th and the pandemic and all this other stuff. Hell, the pandemic is so tough in so many ways, because not only did it take so many lives, but then it took away all the sports entertainment and so many things. So thank God that Vince and these people decided to do it without crowds. AEW
Yeah.
and these people did it without crowds, because minus the UFC, we minus that, because if you watch any of the NBA when it was in the bubble, yeah, thank God we got to see a few games, and it was better than none. It wasn't the same, right? Or
That's
September
right.
September 11th, immediately we still had the concerts to go to and the sports, and you could go to church and you could do whatever you want to do to get past that tough time. Pandemic comes and we're living in turmoil and not being able to release ourselves, other than a few people. And I hope those people will remember and they'll be back at the event, because listen, it is entertainment and it's a release for people and we need it. And with people like you uh, out there promoting it, it will it will it will stay alive and be bigger than ever. And that's why I appreciate what you do. That's why I want to take the time. I enjoy the time being here with you. So you keep on doing what you do, and you keep on spreading the word and loving wrestling and being you.
Thank you, Eric. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your time as well. And last question to wrap up your whole TNA story. Um, say if just hypothetically, if you would have never been going through the personal, issues that you were going through or anything like that, if you would not have been forced to step away from TNA, do you think the outlook would have been a lot different for you? Did you see yourself wrestling there many more years yet, and then it just kind of got pulled out from underneath you last minute, or were you seeing the end of your journey there in sight? Like what was all going on?
Well, going back to the card game, right? I had to deal the hand that was dealt to me, correct? Now, some people listening to this interview might think I got dealt a shitty hand, okay? But that is because people are really tuned in right now and they're listening to it, and it might aggravate them some because it sounds unfair. But what if we talk about a lot of what ifs? What if TNA takes off? What if TNA starts running a lot of house shows? And what if I start bleeding so consistently I die within a year? So remember, I didn't just say peace deuces to wrestling because TNA management or ownership pulled some bad cards on me. If I could go and jump back to WWE or Japan, Germany, and those other places, physically I could have wrestled, meaning the moves and this, I was just getting better and better and better and better. Internally, I was coughing blood. So it was kind of the perfect storm because I had TNA and they are only wrestling once a week realistically, right? And then they started running some shows. So, and the thing about it is I had other businesses. And so I couldn't have just necessarily taken away. So would I have loved to be able to physically make a huge run to them to go back and have a huge run with WWE, the top of the game? I would have loved to. I would love to be at Japan, Germany. I had to stop the road because of the internal bleeding. So maybe, thank God, I was handed some shitty cards again, and I played them out and just said, okay, because there's more to life than what it goes back to how we handle life, right? And so sometimes we get this hand and we think it's a bad hand, and it was actually the greatest hand dealt. Because if I wasn't dealt another hand with my health, I would have pushed through wrestling and pushed through wrestling and pushed through wrestling until I was the top star everywhere if possible, because that was my goal. I wanted to be the greatest storyteller of pro wrestling ever, which I'm not saying I could. There's so many great, beautiful, gorgeous George, and I mean we can go way back to the 50s and 60s about some of these people that were so incredible storytellers, right? But if you're going to go play basketball, I want to be better than Michael Jordan. Okay, I'm not going to pull any punches. I'm not saying I'm going to get there, but this is one thing that I learned in my life. I learned it early. Okay, I want you to remember this. I shoot for the stars. I shoot for the stars. Anytime I do anything, I shoot for the stars. Because you know what? If you barely miss your shot at the stars, you're still out of this atmosphere. Your altitude is way up there. It's the people that shoot 1 foot above their head. When they miss, they're upset they hit their face on the ground, right? So you
Yeah.
always set your goals and aspirations as high as you can. Even if you don't reach them, you reach higher than you ever would have without setting that goal so high. Okay? Your attitude will determine your altitude, but your vision in your heart and mind will decide the distance you go with that. And so I always did that. I've always pushed for that. So I don't look at it as much as if they didn't play games. No, if they didn't play games, who knows? I might have stayed there and rocked it with Raven, rocked it with DDP, and rocked it enough that I'm in the fold and I'm knocking it out and I'm doing fantastic. Maybe, but I was not getting any healthier internally.
Mm-hmm.
I still cough blood occasionally. I still choke on meals because of the surgeries occasionally. But brother, man, remember what I told you? What the doctor said live to 35.
35.
Okay, well, guess how old I am? 53. So just
Wow.
reverse those ages, right? Let's hope I don't die today, so it's not a great story. But my point is, you follow me. So I have beat those odds considerably. I hope and pray to be here a lot longer. So maybe the cards that were dealt to me look shitty, but maybe I won that hand.
You know what? It's amazing, and I think about it. Yeah, you know what? You could be holding the winning hand, and was the match against Raven in TNA? Was that your last professional wrestling match for good?
No, no, that wasn't. I actually dislocated my shoulder in that match and had to knock it back in. That's why the finish got messed up, which that killed me. But no, it wasn't. I actually wrestled about 5 matches last year, just on a whim. I just said last year and the year before. Between the 2 years, I had a few people call me and said, Eric, oh my gosh, would you come and do an autograph session? I said, yes. Well, you always bring your outfit, right? And so I was there the first night at one of them. I had Hickory, North Carolina, and some other North Carolina, and I couldn't run into the worst guys in the world that love wrestling, the Rock and Roll Express. And so then all of a sudden, the Rock and Roll Express is there, and they're like, "What are you doing, kid? You got your bag? You got your outfit?" I go, "You always carry your outfit. I always got my bag." They go, "So you're wrestling?" I go, "No, I'm not." And they go, "Okay, well then you come and do an interview with us tonight in the ring." And I said, "Okay." And Ricky and Robert being some of the funniest guys in the world. I swear to God, I love those guys. So I go out and one of them stopped and they put on I had this huge Harley jacket. And so then I'm walking out and I turn around to let one of them in and the dude's wearing my jacket, already cutting jokes, having fun. And then so they cut a promo and they told me, hey, we're going to cut a promo. You cut a promo. No, you cut a promo. We cut a promo. And then two guys are going to haul ass out. They're going to come in and we want to just light them up. And we're going to throw them into you and you clothesline. We'll end up hot as hell. And man, the fans will be going crazy. And that's how we'll start the show. And then we're in WrestleMania events and you're going to sell a whole bunch of autographs and everything's going to be okay. I'm like, let's do it. Well, they're two of the biggest pranksters in the world. So not only does one wear my jacket out, no big deal, but I'm already laughing. We're already doing well. The guys come in, and they come in and they start whooping some butt on us at first because they came in behind us, and then we were going to turn the heat and we're going to leave them laying. And so somehow in this whole schmoz, right? They're down. Ricky decides to roll out. He gets a chair. He clears the ring. And then I think Robert went to go take the chair away from him, and then he turned around acting like he didn't know it was me laying down, and I think he broke the chair on my back. He's just so hard, and now I can hear him snickering and laughing. I'm like, okay, so none of that shit happened. That's phenomenal, and you hit me with a chair, which you probably been wanting to do for years and years and years. So we got in the back, and they're like, well, the only way you can get us back is if you wrestle tomorrow night. I said, well, damn it, I'm wrestling tomorrow night. So wrestled, and then the guy said, hey, that was great. Would you, I'm going to rerun this one town again a month from now. Would you come and do another match? And I said, yes. So what we did is in that town, we ran it to where I did some stuff, and then someone came in, and then we made another match. So we did that. It's fantastic. Then someone else called me and asked me to come show up, and I can't remember where it was, Virginia somewhere, and I can't remember whether it was Flair's 60th birthday or the 60th, I don't know how it was. And so this kid pre-sold out the town 3 months before he had the show. This kid had already booked me and my father for WrestleMania in New Orleans to sign autographs, which was the only time I co-signed with my father ever. And my father won't go sign any other autographs. His health's not very good anymore, so he won't travel out of his house. And so that's going to be his last autograph session unless I do something like virtually. And so this kid said, hey, Eric, he goes, the week before WrestleMania, we're doing a huge show. It's been sold out. He's telling me this 2 or 3 months. He goes, and He goes, I'm bringing in um, the Four Horsemen. I'm bringing in Lex Luger. I'm bringing in, Ric Flair, blah, blah. And it's Ric Flair's birthday. I'm also bringing in Animal of the Road Warriors. I mean, this guy had a pretty good card. And he goes, and would you come do an autograph session for this there? And I said, yeah. He goes, I need the day before at the car lot. I go to the car lot. Place is slammed. Ricky and Robert are there. Robert Roll Express. And so I told the guy, I'll sign and I'll sign. Well, we were signing. Something happened with one of the matches, and the guy came up and he goes, I saw you bring a bag. I go, I always bring a bag. And he goes, you told me you're not going to wrestle. I said, I'm not going to wrestle. He goes, is there any way I could get you to wrestle tonight? And I go, are you kidding me right now? And it was, like I said, it was a huge event. It was a huge event. And, Flair's birthday, the whole thing. And I said, man, he goes, yeah, we had a situation and we can't put the match together. And the only way we're going to pull us off is if you can wrestle. And Ricky and Robert main event, you semi-main event. I said, who am I wrestling? He goes, well, we're going to put you with this young kid. You're going to wrestle one of Barbarian's nephews, big kid, really good kid. No, he goes, no, Tracy Smothers. He said, Tracy
Oh,
Smothers is coming in. I said, oh my God, Tracy? Of course I'll tag with Tracy. So it was me and Tracy Smothers against Barbie's nephew and someone else. We went out there and we had a blast, rocked it 15, 20 minutes. Lex was like, what are you doing wrestling and laughing? And then he watched the match. He goes, oh my God, you still got it. I had a blast. And I think that was my last match. But again, it was on a whim. But we had the place is sold. It was such a blast just to feel that again and have that excitement and enjoyment. Last time I saw Animal, last time I saw Tracy Smothers. Both those guys passed away, within a year of that show. So again, you know, not only it's how life deals the cards, right? Guy comes up to the wrong guy to ask him if he'll wrestle. I eat, breathe pro wrestling. I shouldn't do it. Bring my outfit because that's what you're supposed to do. Go ahead and do it with a guy I've watched 1,000 times, Tracy Smothers, which me and him, I mean, love him to death, and get to see him stand there with Animal, talk to him, see Lex again because Lex was living in Syracuse now because his father passed away, his mom had been getting older, so I got to see a whole bunch of good people. Sign a whole bunch of autographs, terribly successful, and then ended up being at the WrestleMania after that with my father. So, but that was the last 4 or 5 times because before that I hadn't wrestled since I think 2005, 2006.
okay. Yeah,
Well,
it's amazing that you bring up Tracy Smothers. Up until just even the last few years recently, he would still work in the indie circuits. Like I would see him, I'd see him wrestle at Absolute Intense Wrestling in Cleveland, Ohio.
mm-hmm.
He would go up there and work some shows. Amazing stuff.
Yep, yep,
But Eric, thank you so much
no
for
problem. Thank you.
being here, giving the
Yeah,
time, telling your story, and we're looking forward to what is it next week? Are we gonna
yeah.
we
Next
gonna
Tuesday. Yeah. What time did you want to do it? 5.
we could do either 4 or 5, whatever you'd like.
Let's do 4 if you don't mind. So next Tuesday at 4, my friend.
Okay, perfect. And we'll talk about life after professional wrestling. We'll have you here for one more shot, and I'm looking forward to it, brother. Thank you. And everybody here, thank you for tuning on in today. This has been episode number 318 of the Beyond the Ring with Big T Wrestling podcast for today, Tuesday, June 22nd, 2021. Part number 3 with Mr. Erik Watts, the TNA years. Thank you, Erik, one more time. And everybody here, thank you. And hey, we'll see you next week. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to smash that like button. Leave those comments. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel for all your professional wrestling needs. And of course, as always, folks, I'm your host, Big T, and I will see all of you at the matches. Take care, everybody. I love you all. We'll see you next week.